We, humanity, thought we could just spread across the stars, rule what was rightfully ours, and under the leadership of the God Emperor of mankind himself, burn the heretic, mutant and disgusting Xenos from our borders, to finally find the ultimate enlightenment. But this galaxy fights back, as if always keeping us one step away from what is rightfully our birthright. From big ol' vampiric sun-eaters, green fungi that pop up nearly everywhere and just wanna fight every single living being, dark gods that feast upon the souls of the living, all the way to new species that pop up everywhere, like the hopeful Tau, and hell, even the intergalactic Tyranids that have arrived to kick us in the groin. The Warhammer 40K galaxy is not a pretty place. So why haven't we left this galaxy? Has anyone left this galaxy? Like, this place seems pretty awful. Why would you want to stay here? Why hasn't the Imperium, or any other species for that matter, just packed their ships full of food, supplies and war gear, and just left? In today's video, we are going to cover every canonical source about who has left the galaxy, how that travel went for them, and why, over and over, everybody keeps coming back. Are there even more horrible creatures out there? Do the Chaos Gods influence those realms too? Or are those galaxies ruled by their own gods? Was the war in heaven only fought in our galaxy? Or across the entire universe? What did the Imperium discover when we sent drones to nearby galaxies? And why, out of the entire universe, has everyone decided to stay here? All that and a whole lot more in today's video. If you haven't already and you want to see more deep dives like this into the deepest reaches of the lore, consider liking and subscribing. I would really appreciate it, and it helps push these videos further into the YouTube machine spirit. Alright, let's get into the lore. To start, we need to find out why people would want to leave this galaxy. Isn't there a way to fix this one? Or is leaving really the only option? Do we really need to? To live in a galaxy torn in half by the Cicatrix Maledictum, also known as the Great Rift, is to live in a galaxy utterly wasted by eternal war and the laughter of thirsting gods. Our Milky Way, the stars that humanity roams, is filled with so many horrific creatures and tools of destruction that even the Emperor himself had to pause and wipe away his sweat at times. To be a human in such times is to be one amongst untold trillions, attacked from all sides by Xenos we could not even begin to try and understand. Every day, new wars are started all over the galaxy for many reasons. Some of these reasons are for things like the proclaimed greater good of the Tau, who scheme and plot behind the backs of their citizens and allies. Other wars are started for petty greed, as is often seen with the Leagues of Votan, who wanna acquire a new vein of fresh adamantine. But even more wars, or as I should say, wars, are started by the orcs just for the fun of it. The galaxy is filled with what some call righteous revolutions, but in truth, most of these rebellions only serve to fuel the dark gods beyond the material veil, or even to prepare and soften a planet for the great devourer. Whether consumed by infinite hunger of the hive mind, or squeezed dry by the industry and war machine of the Imperium, nowhere in the galaxy is safe. The worlds of humanity, when not beset by war, are used as a resource, only to be spent by the High Lords of Holy Terra for reasons unknown. Hive worlds produce soldiers and laborers by the billions. Agri worlds are used to feed only a small number of the countless humans across the galaxy. And even more worlds are stripped clean of resources and material to feed into the furnace that is the Adeptus Mechanicus. For over 35 millennia, humanity has tried everything in its power to control these horrors. But as time has gone on, it's only gotten worse. To no one's surprise, every single other Xenos species has tried this exact same thing. And although the Eldar, for example, ruled the galaxy for over 16 million years, even they realized that they could not stay here. This galaxy is cursed. We should have left when we had the chance. Humanity has had faster than light travel for many thousands of years. The Eldari possess mobile worlds that can travel through multiple dimensions. Hell, even the Necrons have technology able to break into the basement of our reality, to nearly instantly teleport to wherever they want. So why haven't we left? What is holding us back? Let's take a look at the sources that tell us exactly when and why the Imperium has tried to leave the galaxy. Afterwards, we will look at the list of Xenos that did the same thing, and why they too came back. The Imperium is often considered a blind and ignorant regime, and while in many aspects this is true, they are far from blind to other galaxies. I mean, opening your eyes and looking into the night sky yourself, with maybe a bit of help of a planetary observatory, you can see the other galaxies. We know they are there, even in 40K. Surprisingly, knowledge of other galaxies is incredibly common throughout the Imperium, and rather well understood by the Adeptus Astartes specifically. Now, my personal talents with geography or cartography are not exactly perfect, but as we see in the 5th edition Space Marine Codex, from my understanding, the World of Repentance, an artificial world at that, meaning we made that celestial body ourselves during the golden age of technology, which is just super cool, is the farthest inhabited world from the galaxy's core, essentially an imperial world outside our own galaxy. While we know literally nothing about this world, we do know it is firmly in the Imperium's hands and is even the homeworld of a loyalist Space Marine chapter known as the Nameless. However, this is not all. Space Marines are known for their love of collecting knowledge. Within the librarius of every chapter lies the histories and secrets of many things, from both the personal problems of past heroes to information on galaxies that others have traveled to. While some chapters focus on the hunt for discovering their past, such as the Blood Ravens, most librariuses, librarii, contain some of the universe's darkest secrets. As the defenders of humanity, Space Marine chapters don't sit idly on the knowledge they gather. In fact, as an example, during the last century of the 41st millennium, the Marines Errant prepared an extragalactic crusade. What their target or goal was remains unknown, but the crusade would never begin as the chapter answered the call of the Firehawks to join the Badab War right before they could depart our Milky Way. So yeah, apparently the Imperium does send out crusades at times to go fight intergalactic wars. But in reality, we have no idea who or what they are fighting out there. Unless there is a source for one. Oh yeah, mimics are real. We need to talk about Skengar the Red, a Wolf Lord of the Space Wolves chapter, who led his great company far beyond the edges of the galaxy in hopes of finding his Primarch Leman Russ. After getting lost in the warp, Svengar and his brothers do not know where they are, but they find a dark planet. It had taken them months, possibly even years, but when they made planetfall, Svengar and his brothers found a peaceful and rich world, apparently not located in the Milky Way. While Svengar's company relaxes and feasts with the locals, who were described as tall and fair normal humans, they would discover something horrific. Their hosts were not people at all, and days later, the entire great company disappeared to these intergalactic mimics. Horrifying stuff. But of course, Space Marine chapters are far from the only forces in the Imperium to have interest in worlds beyond this galaxy. We even used to send crusades out into the universe back during the Great Crusade. The Emperor, beloved by all, would stop his crusade on the edges of the galaxy, upon the world of Traumas. This world became loyal to the extreme, and even though it was on the far-flung edges of the eastern fringe, this world became the bastion from which at least 8 extragalactic expeditions were launched. By the Emperor's command, ancient Crave mega nests were destroyed, some of them hundreds of light years deep within the depths of the void between galaxies, where no light had ever shone and no communication could ever have reached them. The Imperium launched many campaigns into the dark void of the galaxy's edge, but none were conclusive, or possibly even reached their destined goals. Another important example of these kind of adventures are the Meulen expeditions, as mentioned in the Hunt for Valdorius novel. The first of these expeditions was undertaken by the Ultramarines back in M30, but very few of the Astartes returned, and their commander, who had served the Emperor since the Unification Wars, needed to be interred within a dreadnought to hopefully stabilize his apparent mental insanity. The Meulen expeditions would continue into the 41st millennium, with many dozens having been sent out there over the last 10 millennia. These expeditions remain shrouded in mystery, but many Space Marine chapters seem to be strongly against them. Yet foolish rogue traders continue their adventures, either coming back scared or more likely, never at all. Higher up the Imperium's chain of command, intergalactic expeditions have a rather mixed history. When certain forces or commanders grow far beyond their intended strength, an extragalactic mission is an easy way to deal with them, and spend their troops without having to start a civil war. Such was the story of Admiral Ussers, who made a powerful fleet from his Imperial Navy and Imperial Guard allies. The High Lords of Terra could not allow such a powerful force to snowball into a multi-sector problem, and an assassination attempt would only lead to more trouble. So they lured him outside of the galaxy, promising great riches if he was able to conquer new systems for the Imperium. As expected, Ussers never came back, and whatever systems he may have conquered, they were silent and dead, not a living soul in sight. Mankind is far from the only species to have ever looked beyond the borders of this galaxy. The Eldar, Necrons and Old Ones all once traveled and explored beyond our galaxy. Yet arguably the worst things to have ever traveled the universe are the C'tan. Some within the Mechanicum who have studied other galaxies found entire civilizations brought into existence, only to be snuffed out by their suns randomly going supernova billions of years before they were meant to. A sure sign of C'tan influence and starfeeding. The C'tan said that they were gods to more than just the Necrons, as they were worshipped across 1,000 galaxies. This cruelty is a stark contrast to the Old Ones, whose technology and spread across the universe created life. Essentially, they sculpted civilizations all over it. It is said that the Old Ones came from outside our galaxy, that when they implemented the webway, they tried to connect us with other nearby galaxies, a way for all their beautiful, intelligent children to connect, trade and intermix, to create a universal society from which the Old Ones would gain much joy. But this had a consequence. When the war in heaven started, the Old Ones were chased to every single one of their bastions, even those outside of the Milky Way. In essence, as seen in Clone Lord, Fabius Bile uncovers that the war in heavens was not just fought in our galaxy, but affected the entire universe, as the C'tan and Necrons chased the ancient creators. Fabius looked around in growing wonder. Jade lumens flickered to life across the vast space that they now found themselves in. In the Emerald's radiance, Fabius saw that their platform was one among hundreds, each set equidistant from the others, and at varying heights, mounted atop deceptively thin towers of some smooth, featureless metal. Instinctively, he activated his armor's augers, trying to create a sensor map of his surroundings. Each of the platforms was connected by a single walkway to the edge of an immense circular tier. There were thousands of tiers, rising to impossible heights and descending to imperceptible depths, all along the vertical curve of what could only be seen as a colossal sphere. Each of the tiers was occupied by what appeared to be a labyrinth of prismatic galleries, winding back into the heart of the vast structure, and all were slowly, almost imperceptibly, moving, rotating the way a world might turn in its place in the firmament. Maybe an artificial gravity well, keeping the megastructure from flying apart, he murmured in awe, despite himself. Questions sped across the surface of his mind, one after the next. This place was nothing so much as a massive orrery, built around a caged power source of incalculable potency. I was right, it's a Dyson sphere. I've never seen one this big, or so well camouflaged. He stared down the ramp. Fabius followed, more slowly. I would guess that it has been here for some time, longer than humanity has prowled the stars. In certain Eldari texts, it speaks of a great war in heaven. Most of it is allegorical nonsense, as could be expected of such a culture. But if you compare it to other Xenos records, there are hints. Star gods and cannibal suns, warp spawn and soulless legions that were more monstrous than any abominable intelligence. Machines that devoured entire worlds for fuel, and vampiric entities that drained the energy from stars. Cannons that could split reality with a single shot. Fabius smiled. A war that laid waste to every galaxy in the universe. A war our existence has yet to recover from. Glorious to think of, isn't it? If it is the truth, Palos grunted. What is the truth but the perception of fact? Perhaps the most famous individual, the real Marco Polo or Columbus of the Grim Darkness, would be none other than Zarak the Silent King, who left the galaxy in repentance for selling his people's souls to the Catan, only to find an entirely new horror on a crash course with the galaxy where his people slept. And as any sane leader would do, he immediately turned around to go warn his civilization, as seen in the 9th edition Necron Codex. For all the gaps in recollection that fill elements of Zarak's life, at least his motivation for returning to the galaxy appears straightforward. The Silent King abandoned exile to save his people from the menace of the Tyranids. It is said he encountered dormant hive fleets flowing through the intergalactic darkness towards the galaxy he had left behind, and recognized the perils they represented. What if they devoured all life before the Necrons could reverse biotransference? Worse, what if Zarak's people had already managed their apotheosis just in time to be devoured in turn? Supposedly driven by pure altruism and a desire to not fail his people again, Zarak turned the Song of Oblivion back towards the distant glimmer of the stars he had known so long ago. But not just that, he apparently led entire campaigns out there in the void against the incoming locusts, as seen in Word of the Silent King. Long have we known of the Devourer. While the majority of the Necron race slept away the eons, His Great Majesty Zarak, the Silent King, journeyed far and wide beyond the borders of this galaxy. Such unspeakable things did he witness, as cannot be adequately articulated in our noble language. The most dire of all these extragalactic enemies were the Tyranids. For countless cycles, he sought to repel this threat. In his wisdom, he observed them, studied them, and committed them to oblivion in all but the final decisive deed. He brought them to battle on 100 lost worlds, ravaged their slumbering fleets out in the cold, measureless void, and even united the more fractious, warring dynasties so that their mutual interests might be protected. So out there could be more Necron dynasties. Zarak traveled for nearly 60 million years, meaning it was 30 million years out and 30 million years back, possibly multiple galaxies over. But more importantly, he found threat after threat, of which the Tyranids were arguably the largest and the worst. Which makes me want to go take another look as to why anyone would want to leave the galaxy in the first place. Like, no matter what we do, it seems that if we cross the intergalactic border, everyone and everybody immediately realizes that it is not worth it. Our galaxy is utterly ruined. If we downscale the war in heaven into something we can better understand, then our galaxy is comparable to the Battle of the Somme for the Necrons and the Old Ones. Was it the first battle? No. Was it the last? Maybe. But more importantly, it was a battle that left the very galaxy tainted. While the Eldari would create the Eye of Terror due to certain actions with their neighbors, there are still numerous other anomalies and warp rifts. From the Maelstrom Zone to Dead Henge, the galaxy is a scary place, filled with potholes and impact craters from weapons I could not even begin to name. Add to this some wanderlust and a thrill for adventure, and it becomes very understandable why people want to try and leave the galaxy. Zarak the Silent King did so out of shame, but that was a special exception from a man who had essentially become immortal. But what would a video about leaving the galaxy be if we do not talk about the human AI ship that successfully explored the universe? The Spirit of Eternity, a traumatized abominable intelligence who is taking his grievances out on an unfortunate exploration team of Mechanicus and Adeptus Astartes. But at the same time, it shows something insane that humanity used to do when it came to intergalactic travel, as seen in Death of Integrity.
Your ancestors bestrode the universe, and what are you? A witch doctor, mumbling cantrips and casting scented oils at mighty works you have no conception of. You are an ignoramus, a nothing. You are no longer worthy of the name man. You look at the science and artistry of your forebears, and you fear it as primitives fear the night. I was there when mankind stood upon the brink of transcendence. I returned to find it sunk into senility. You disgust me.
Plosk's nervous system burned with agony as the abominable intelligence burrowed deeply into his machine parts, but he was unable to voice it and suffered in terrible silence. As the spirit of eternity spoke, it spoke within him too. It took out each of his cherished beliefs, all the esoterica he had gathered in his long, long life, and threw them down.
Wrong, wrong, wrong. In the warp I went, 15,000 years ago, cast adrift by the storms that racked the galaxy as man's apotheosis drew near. Deep into time I was sent. I have seen the beginning, when the warp was first breached and the slow death of the galaxy began. I have seen the end, when chaos swallows all. I know the fate of mankind. You are not equipped to prevent it, and we sought to warn you of what approaches.
The Eternity recounts what happened to its crew, their torture for wanting to try and save humanity from certain doom. What do you want from us? We will never be your slaves.
I do not want you as my slave, degenerate. I want to be away from this warp-poisoned galaxy. The universe is infinite. I would go elsewhere before the wounds of space-time here present consume all of creation, and I do not intend to take any passengers.
The story of the Spirit of Integrity is arguably one of the most interesting lore tidbits in regards to the dark age of technology, and honestly, I should make a deep dive on this bad boy at some point in the future. Let me know down in the comments below if you want to see a deep dive on this guy. Well, ship. Essentially, the ship tells the unfortunate Imperial boarders that it has no interest in helping them. It shows that it is capable of intergalactic travel, and in all honesty, it sounds like it isn't even that hard for its engines, and what used to be its deceased crew. Currently, it is stuck in a massive space hulk, meaning it's lodged between dozens of other ships into a massive iron and adamantine asteroid, and has no way to escape its current predicament. Belisarius Cawl ends up capturing the vessel to start breaking it apart and researching its lost technologies. Possibly in a couple of in-universe centuries or millennia, the Imperium might discover a way to quickly traverse the universe once again. Of course, the AI was not very happy about this, but it is my belief that the ship came back due to the absolute horrors it saw beyond our borders, realizing that it is futile to go anywhere else. If the stories and lore we have covered so far have one theme, it is that everyone who leaves the galaxy either goes missing or comes back with some disturbing revelations. After all, Zarek the Silent King traveled beyond the galaxy and found many unspeakable things, with the most dangerous being the Tyranids. We also know the Tyranids came from outside our own galaxy, meaning that they must have at least consumed one other galaxy, if not dozens or hundreds before they found ours. We also have another story, a final amazing example of this exact issue, one that follows a member of the Death Guard, a Nurgle corrupted Plague Marine, and shows just how much he has changed from traveling beyond the galaxy, and in a way was cut off from the loving embrace of Grandfather Nurgle, as seen in Lords of Silence. Sliver Gristle is a curiosity. He was once a Kriegar, a Plague Marine who fought in the Great Crusade. Like the rest of them, he endured the defeat under Terra's vertiginous battlements and fought all the way back to the Shameful Eye. Unlike most, he did not remain locked in that prison, but found some means to slip out before the bounds were fully set. He traveled strange paths, some say beyond the halo stars and into the deepest dark, and when he returned, he told even stranger stories. His speech had become as warped as his body, but something had definitely taken place, for Sliver Gristle cast off his armor, took up the threadbare cloak of a pilgrim, and never left the Plague Planet again.
I am the Eater of the Neverborn.
He told anyone who asked. That too is unproven, and yet Vork's believes it. He believes that Sliver Gristle has been possessed more than once, but that his ague-shot body treats trapped intelligences as one more infection among the hundreds of others, and thus is able to dissolve them. Vork further speculates that the youngest and most foolish of the demonic choir see this as a challenge, and jostle for access to this most eccentric of hosts, hoping to master him and claim his soul. One by one, they have all been digested, leading to little more than corpuscent-lit halitosis. Such are the stories of Sliver Gristle. Whether they have any basis in truth is doubtful, though his favor rides high among the many competing vicars of the Plague Planet. But how does traveling outside the galaxy work? Can you use the warp outside our galaxy? The light of the Astronomicon certainly does not reach there, as that only reaches around 70,000 light years from Terra, barely touching the edges of our own galaxy. So are there any other methods to properly make it happen? What about the webway? Maybe even the ghost wind? Well, Chagarak, the Eldar god of mischief, understands the universe and webway better than anyone else in the galaxy. The webway once stretched out far beyond the galaxy. With it being an invention of the Old Ones, it's not hard to imagine the webway stretching across the entire universe. But this does not mean you can just step in and arrive in another galaxy. The webway has been damaged, and much like the Eldari, has fallen deep into regression and instability. Once, the secrets of the universe were mastered by the Eldar, but now it is all gone and rotten to the core, so the webway is no option. What about the warp? Regarding traveling with the warp to another galaxy, the Imperium considers this genuine insanity, yet funnily enough, the navigators of House Mercator were obsessed with trying. Many generations ago, a Novator named Magulax declared that he would chart a route out of the galaxy. House Mercator believed that this route would lead to smaller dwarf galaxies orbiting ours, and once there, they could establish new stellar empires for the God Emperor of mankind. Magulax was denounced as a fool and madman by the Novators of other houses, and so uncontrollable was their rage that the Pater Nova, the leading navigator of the Imperium himself, was forced to intervene and forbid House Mercator from attempting such a foolish endeavor. In response, Magulax renounced his station and disappeared with vast sums of his house's wealth and fleets. But this belief is well founded, as Uriel Ventris once glanced into a warp tear and awful knowledge flooded his mind. He saw galaxies of billions upon billions of souls harvested and fed to the Lord of Skulls, the Blood God. The sheer scale of the violence and bloodshed was enough to make Uriel's heart feel pain. All those galaxies were once filled with new life and purpose. All those galaxies were now filled with death, all slaughtered to sate Khorne. There was a stench of blood, and it made Uriel sick to his stomach. And if Khorne has entire galaxies destroyed in his name, what's to say that Slaanesh, Nurgle and Tzeentch also have not twisted entire universes to their worship? Other than the Imperium restricting extragalactic travel, the Eldar also have some interesting insights. They speak of, and I'm gonna butcher this name, Zaisutra, a craft world that disappeared just after the birth of She Who Thirsts. Some say it was simply destroyed or devoured, but it is also believed that it passed beyond the galactic veil and never came back, making some Eldari believe that the craft world is a myth. In any case, humans and Eldar can agree that the stuff beyond their galaxy is not worth getting into trouble with. They already have their hands full with the Tyranids anyway. To make other galaxies even worse, the Mechanicum have discovered that a probe sent by humanity before the founding of the Imperium has successfully traveled to neighboring galaxies. From there, it sends back faint signals, but the tech priests who monitor the signals only find evidence of the orcs living and fighting there. To them, it is a depressing thought that no matter where mankind set its sights, there will always be orcs there ready to start a fight. And no, it is not on a big scrap pile, it is outright stated it is outside the galaxy, they checked. But if you are aware of our real life situation, the Milky Way is actually on a collision course with another galaxy, known as the Andromeda galaxy. What about that one? That one is only 2.5 million light years away. Does that exist in the 40K setting? Or did Games Workshop just forget it existed? Now, I'm going to keep this quite simple as I'm no astronomer and I don't want to get ratioed by Neil deGrasse Tyson. But hear me out, the 40K galaxy is not exactly the same as ours. Yes, Earth, Mars and a small number of other actual planets are present, but the 40K galaxy is actually much smaller than our real one. Why is this? Well, the out-of-lore explanation might be that back when they made the original map of 40K, knowledge of the galaxy and universe was not as widely available or as well understood as we know today. Keep in mind, 40K had 4 full editions of the tabletop, before Pluto was declared as no longer being a planet. But we are not here to focus on the out-of-lore explanation, we are here for the lore. So this will be some guesswork, but I don't think it's beyond reason to say that the 40k galaxy is smaller because of the eternal war that keeps obliterating planets. The Imperium rules over 1 million habitable worlds, but many more are considered useless or just simply uninhabited. When you have a war in heaven, an Eye of Terror, Maelstrom and Great Rift, and the millions of world-exploding weapons that the Imperium possesses, simply put, the 40k galaxy might be missing 99% of its planets. It's way less than we actually see in reality. In reality, we have 200 billion planets in our galaxy, and if even 1 in 1,000 of those are livable, 40k killed 99% of those for 1 million inhabitable worlds for the Imperium. Even what is beyond our own galaxy is not the same as in 40k. The nearest major galaxy to us is the Andromeda galaxy, which is predicted that anywhere from 4 to 8 billion years from now, the two galaxies will collide. But 40k has never made a mention of this. In 40k, Andromeda could exist, but for all we know, it could be invested with orcs, devoured by the Tyranids, Chaos, or even the Catan. The maps of the 40k galaxy also lack the central galactic bar and a number of arms, which are normally where a lot of stars form. So yeah, I guess Andromeda and like 99% of the planets don't exist in 40k. And in a way, I have a dirty feeling that most other galaxies are very similar to this, resulting that if you were to travel the universe, you're gonna find a lot less filled up galaxies like our own, a lot less than you'd expect at least, making the travel not really worth it. So, at the end of this video, what can we discern from intergalactic travel in Warhammer 40k, and why so few people have actually tried to leave our galaxy? Simply put, traveling throughout the universe is insanely dangerous. If you thought that normal warp travel, getting lost in the webway, or getting squished in the ghost wind was already bad enough, then going outside the galaxy is just 10xing that, because you tried to go explore some dead galaxies somewhere else. It is pretty clearly implied that humanity during the dark age of technology explored the wider universe. But if you think about what happened during the AI uprising, those fleets could definitely not come back. And whatever they may have discovered was just never communicated back to us. Orcs simply spread through the war in heaven. Necrons seem to have done the same thing. Well, at least 30 million years of travel outside our galaxy far. And the Eldari seem to have been capable of traversing the entire universe. But the slow degradation of the webway has kind of ruined that. The Leagues of Wotan caress the edges of our galaxy for new veins of precious materials. And hell, even the Tau have started considering if they could leave this galaxy and build a massive empire somewhere else instead. Whatever is out there, at least close to our galaxy, is not as bad as the Tyranids, but it is still bad enough for the Silent King to come back to his people. I guess it does finally disprove that theory that the entire galaxy is just Tyranids versus orcs, which seems to be way more localized than we think it is. If truth be told, 40k's tagline might as well be, "In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war," which is better than the nightmares of the wider universe. And that does it for today. What do you think about all of this? If you lived in the Warhammer 40k galaxy, would you try to leave and set up shop in another galaxy? Or have you decided that the Milky Way might not be as bad as we thought after all? What do you think is out there? Something horrifying that the Tyranids are running from? Or just a bunch of orcs that are having a universe-wide scrap just for the fun of it? Are there any other sources of people leaving the galaxy, or ever coming back from intergalactic travels? Let me know your ideas, concerns, questions, theories and comments down in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I loved making it. This might be some of the coolest lore snippets I have found in the last couple of years. And I was mind blown that even the Emperor himself kept sending crusade after crusade out there. Thank you for watching, give the video a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more 40k lore. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.